this could be WWE's next big babyface storyline. So the story of Alpha Academy is one that dates all the way back to 2020, where Chad Gable was going through a bit of a losing streak and Otis was also as well, but Chad Gable seen a lot of potential in Otis and knew that he had this untapped potential that if tapped into, he would be an absolute monster on the main roster. Now this would take a few months, but eventually Otis would tap into that more dark side, I guess you could say, that Chad Gable wanted him to tap into, and he would become an absolute monster on the main roster, and aligning himself with one Chad Gable, who was an absolute technician in the ring. This was one of the better tag teams around, but they only got one Raw Tag Team Championship. And this is where you could say the downfall of Alpha Academy started. A lot of us thought that they were going to be a very successful, very powerful tag team, but it just looked like WWE didn't see much with them, so they kind of turned them into somewhat of a joke. Speaking of jokes, arguably the biggest joke in WWE history, but I'm not going to lie, I actually had a little bit of interest in this group, was the Maximum Male Models of one Max Dupree and one Maxine Dupree and one Marseille and Mansoir. Obviously, you can tell what this group's whole thing is. They're male models. That was the whole entire gimmick. Actually pretty dang good wrestlers though, to be honest. Eventually, Max Dupree would end up leaving the group, and while I do love LA Knight, I gotta say, he played this character to an absolute T. He did the best you could possibly do with it, and I was highly entertained every single time him and the Maximum Male Models were on the screen. But eventually, he would leave, become LA Knight, all that good stuff, and Maxine Dupree would look for another talent. Well, those hawk eyes of hers would take her to one Otis, also known as Otis, and she believed that he could be the next big model in this modeling world. But Chad Gable was like, wait, hold on, no, this is my tag team partner and also my absolute monster. You're not taking him from me, which led to a whole little back and forth between these two for a couple of weeks. Well, eventually Maxine Dupree would put in her 2 weeks with the Maximum Male Models and said, I am trading in this managerial position for an in-ring position and joining up with the Alpha Academy. They actually had their first match against, I want to say it was the Viking Raiders with Valhalla, and it was actually a really dang good match, regardless of how you think about Maxine's skills. You know, she was very, very green around this time, but she showed a lot of promise, and she's actually gotten a lot better over the years, so shout out to Maxine Dupree, man. I hope one day she does get an actual roster run where she's treated more like a talent and not just looked at for her character work, which she does absolutely phenomenal, by the way, and if she gets all that in line, I do believe Maxine Dupree could be a solid mid-card wrestler. Oh, but it does not stop there, though, because as we know, there was a fourth member of this group known as one Akira Tozawa. Well, not necessarily, because he was a junior Alpha Academy member. See, he had to prove himself, and he got the bright idea of proving himself against Bronson Reed. And if you happen to go back and watch this match, just remember to ring the 10 bells afterwards, because it was an absolute destruction of one Akira Tozawa. I think this is actually when he lost his first name, and he was just known as Tozawa. But just like one Chad Gable saw potential in Otis and saw potential in Maxine Dupree, he also saw potential in Tozawa. This was also the official stamping that this was just a comedic group, and they actually were really dang funny, man. Tozawa has some of the funniest segments in WWE history. He is up there with the likes of R-Truth, man. This dude is just absolute gold. He needs to be protected at all cost. Now, while they would basically be the butt of everybody's jokes, eventually Chad Gable got over this. He knew that he was way too dang talented to be stuck in a joke group, and he started getting a bit more aggressive with the Alpha Academy members, particularly with one Otis, who he would put his hands on more than once. Obviously, this was not going to sit with Otis, but he was also willing to take the brunt of the punishment if it meant that Maxine and Tozawa were not going to have to deal with anything. That was until, well, Maxine started to get hurt a few too many times, partially because of one Chad Gable. Now, eventually, after many weeks and many slaps and many pleas, and trust me, these were not many pleas by any means. These were very much so large pleas by the WWE fan base. To have Otis finally turn on Chad, it happened after many weeks. My goodness, this took so dang long. You know, why are we surprised that, like, the New Day thing was a slow burn, or A-Town Down Under has been the slowest of burns, or pretty much every other feud has been a slow burn? Like, come on, this should have been a prime example that these were all going to take 10 dang years to happen. But eventually it would happen, and Otis, Maxine Dupree, and Akira Tozawa would turn their backs on one Chad Gable. Although you could make the claim that Chad Gable turned his back on them, but that was very short-lived because, well, so was Chad Gable's life, because he would get taken out by the Wyatt Six, and somehow we just hyped up a bunch of serial killers as, good guys. We're pretty odd in WWE as like fans and all that because we turned our backs on Daniel Bryan when, he was the Eco champion and believed that saving the planet was a good thing. And we were all like, no, we can't do that. No, what? Save the planet? No. But no, 5 masked killers could come in and kill a bunch of WWE staff members and Chad Gable. And at one point in time, we believed that it was Gunther and Carmelo as well. And no, they're good guys. Oh man, hey, man, shout out these guys in the Y6, man. They're looking absolutely phenomenal. But have no fear, American Made was here in the form of Julius and Brutus Creed and Ivy Nile, who would end up joining up with one Chad Gable in his fight against the Wyatt Six. Now, I still say to this day, had this match happened at SummerSlam instead of the Monday after SummerSlam, I think folks would have been a lot more invested in it. But because it happened afterwards, we kind of felt like maybe this wasn't a big enough match. It kind of took a lot of the air out of this whole entire match and then really took the air out of Chad Gable because this feud just did nothing for him at all. Chad Gable was still Chad Gable. Julius and Brutus were still Julius and Brutus. And Ivy Nile, while she has gotten to be a bit of a better in-ring competitor, didn't really do much for her either. Honestly, I think WWE just missed the ball on Chad Gable, though. If you weren't going to do it at WrestleMania, you probably should have just kept him with Alpha Academy, never had that whole turn. I feel like you did nothing for him, and you really did nothing for them either. I mean, granted, I don't know what they were ever going to be in WWE. A few of them were a bit older besides Maxine, so maybe they were just kind of past their prime. I feel like Chad Gable still has some good years left in him and was supposed to go on this whole Kurt Angle run, but that never happened at all. But with that said, it looks like the Alpha Academy American Made feud may end up picking back up, and I believe the reason for this is because Alpha Academy is about to get a new addition to the group. That addition being one Andre Chase, the former head of Chase motherfucking you. If you don't know who Andre Chase is, you may not be familiar with NXT, but he was a member of a group also known as one of the greatest colleges of all time, actually the greatest college of all time. Matter of fact, I actually graduated from there with outstanding honors, got 2 bachelors there, known as Chase U. Let me tell you right now, greatest school of all time. If you ain't gone there, well, sadly, you can't go there anymore because, oh man, my old school got disbanded because of one dang Ridge Hollins, man. Andre Chase put up the entirety of Chase U, and he just couldn't get the job done against Ridge Holland, man. But I don't think Andre Chase's career is done in WWE by any means, even though he has no college to go back to, because now I think he's going to switch out that college for an academy and end up joining Alpha Academy. You see, so many people love Andre Chase and Chase U. So many people are behind him. People are still asking for him to, form another group or do something in NXT because they want to see him. And everybody absolutely loves Otis, Akira Tozawa, and Maxine Dupree, that I believe you could put Andre Chase with this group and turn them into a legitimate group in 2025. Now, do I think that they have to be like, WWE champion, WWE women's champion, tag team champion, just running the dang roster? No, they ain't got to do all that. But they could be a mini version of New Day where you could put some tag team belts on them. You could put an Intercontinental Championship maybe on Andre Chase, or at least put him in the pictures for the Intercontinental Championship. I think you could, and this group would look really dang fun. And if we're not going to do anything with Chad Gable and American Made, then I believe that we could just push Andre Chase and Alpha Academy versus American Made, have this real feel-good story of, Alpha Academy coming back to the light and being one of the groups that's not just a joke, but showing that they have talent when they want to because they got a whole lot of heart, and that's something that Chad Gable and American Made just don't have. And you put Alpha Academy over American Made, and it's that real feel-good story that a lot of WWE fans could look back on and be like, dang, man, that was a really happy time for me. Look, y'all, I would love to see this, man. We need another feel-good story in WWE. I know we just had finished a story with Cody Rhodes, but, man, give me more of it, man. I want more feel-good stories in WWE. I don't want all these dang heels running the roster. I want to see the faces doing some big, cool babyface things that are just going to make me feel all good after a long day of stress. What y'all think, though? Y'all go ahead and let me know down below. How would y'all feel about this whole storyline if it played out? If you haven't already, make sure you do like and subscribe for more.